welcome to you.
Me.
And TV. I'm Mike.
I'm Gia.
And today we're going to be talking about our favorite shows of 2019.
Yeah, 2019, a whole decade ago.
A whole decade ago. Well, it feels like that, doesn't it? Because we're like midway through January right now.
Yeah.
But, and people have been telling me, they were like, hey, when's the bonus episode coming out with your best shows, with your favorite shows of 2019?
Oh, who said that? My mom or your mom?
It was nobody. It was on the street, Gia.
Okay.
I was walking down the street and somebody said, hey, Mike, what's up? Hey, when's the new show coming out? I got to know what the best shows are.
For the record, I've never seen that happen.
It happened the other day. You were doing something else.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's that's silly. But hey, look, welcome to the podcast. I'm so happy you're here.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
We've had a lot of new listeners lately. I've been like checking the old stats, and we're getting, if not tens, hundreds of people listening.
Yeah, and it's always very exciting to see that.
I love it.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. We truly, truly appreciate it. And I think this is going to be a fun episode. If you're new to the podcast, well, first, welcome. But normally what we do, we go through like an episode of TV, like a first episode of a TV show, and we kind of break it down a little bit, talk a little bit about, some of the backstory about it, some of the writers, the actors, that sort of thing, and kind of our own experiences too. But this is, of course, one of our bonus episodes. We're going to be counting
it's our
down.
off season.
It is our off season, yeah. But we're going to be counting down our 10 favorite shows of this year.
Yeah,
And
each of us made a
each
top
of us.
10 list,
So
and we haven't seen each other's list.
we haven't seen the list, so it's there's a little overlap there too, probably, I would guess.
Yeah.
Because we watched a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah.
But, before we get into that, though, I think we should talk about what we mean when we say, these are like our favorite shows of the year. These are not the best shows of the year.
Yeah, we don't like that term.
I don't like that term. So
many lists came out last year that were like the top 10 or 20 shows of 2019.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Get off of your high horse.
Yeah.
It's 2019. Well, it's 2020 now, but it's you can watch whatever you want to watch. Like, don't tell me that Game of Thrones is the best show of the year. I don't like dragons. Maybe I'm not open-minded. I don't know. I don't even know how much dragons play into it there.
I think they play a very large part.
They probably do. And look, you might be thinking, whoa, hey, these people, they don't even like Game of Thrones. I'm turning this off right now. That was not the guy from the street. That was a slightly different guy. Yes, that was a slightly different guy.
That guy is not a Game of Thrones fan?
No, that guy is a favorite. That guy is a Game of Thrones fan.
But the guy who accosted you on the street is not.
No, he's not. He's a hardcore fan of our podcast.
Okay, great.
But the other guy, hey, you don't like Game of Thrones? That sounded like the last guy. Anyway, I think that we have a unique sense of taste, I guess.
Yes.
Not a sense of taste. Taste in shows. Our senses of the taste of the five senses, I think, is normal.
I think so.
You can never really know for sure.
You don't know what anyone else is tasting. Isn't that weird?
It's a weird thing.
Like what tastes like M&Ms to me could taste like carrots to you. We don't know.
That seems like a stretch. I would have said Skittles.
Ew, that sounds
Skittles
gross.
are gross,
Yeah.
but some people like them. And I think that's a good metaphor for that.
That's true. Yeah. Some people like Game of Thrones and some people, probably those same people, also like Skittles. And I don't like either of those things.
Hey, there you go. And so
welcome to our podcast.
Welcome to our podcast. And it seems like we just went on a huge tangent there. We were leading up to the metaphor, but that's what we do. We like to talk about TV, but we talk a little bit about ourselves, get to know us, and just have a nice time here. Oh man. So here's how we're gonna do this. You're gonna start off, talk about your number 10, and we'll get into it. We'll talk about it.
We're counting down to our very favorite show.
Our very favorite.
Yes.
From least very favorite to very, very favorite.
Yes. And we're leaving off a lot of shows because we watch a lot of TV.
We watch a lot of
TV. So there were a lot of contenders.
There were many contenders.
Yeah.
I had to cut off some shows that I love. And maybe at the end we'll talk about some of those ones that we had to cut off. And so if you're number 10, though, if it appears anywhere on my list, then I'll let you know where that showed up on my list, too.
Okay.
And then we'll talk about, we'll get it deep into it if we need to, or we'll just kind of breeze past it. It depends. And then I'll go with my number 10, and we'll kind of go back and forth like that.
Hey, that sounds good.
And the goal here, I think hopefully when we're finished with that, you, the listener, are like, oh, I'm going to go check out some shows right now because there's some stuff that maybe I haven't heard of and I'm psyched to hear it. So, this is going to be fun. And the listener, by the way, what do we call our fans? The Duprees?
That's what you call them.
That's what I call them. You, me, and Duprees. That's you, me, and then you, the listeners, the Duprees. Okay. Shall we get started with this? Should we do it? Let's dive right in.
Let's do it.
So Gia, tell the Duprees out there, tell everyone, what's your number 10 favorite show of the year?
All right. Well, before I get into my actual list, I jotted down because I put together my list, and then I noticed some commonalities.
Okay, some common themes, some kind of common types of shows.
So I thought I would just say a few words about that first.
I like it. It's a fun little introduction.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So the first thing I noticed is that all of the shows on my list are comedies, or at the very least,
all of them.
They're either comedies or dramedies, at least. So there are a few things that are a little more dramatic, but have a high joke density. I'm going to
assume you did not put Mindhunter on there then, or else you and I interpreted that way differently.
You didn't think Mindhunter was funny?
It actually is funny, but it's definitely not a comedy.
No, I don't have Mindhunter on my list, although I did really like it. So that's why it's hard to make a best shows of 2019 list.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but these are my favorites. They're all comedies on my list. Another thing I noticed, 5 of the top 10 of my top 10 shows, the star is also the series creator.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
that's kind of cool.
Yeah. And then the third thing that I noticed on my list is that all but one of the shows in my top 10 were either created by a woman and or center around a female lead character.
Oh, hey, look at that.
Yeah, good year
equality
for women.
Yeah, in television.
TV.
Yeah.
Yes, in TV.
I noticed, are those all the things you were saying?
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, based on those 3 things, you might assume, especially if you've read some other top 10 lists of 2019, that Fleabag is on my list.
Look,
I'm going to tell you right now, it's not.
You might as well put dragons in there too, because I couldn't get into it.
Yeah, and to be honest, I tried. I watched all of season 1. I watched most of season 2, which came out in 2019. And I just never could get into it. I didn't hate it. Obviously, I watched a season and a half of it, but it just didn't do much for me. And a lot of the things that I hear it getting praised for like kind of presenting like a unapologetic female experience kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I feel like other shows on my list do that as well and did it better.
Nice.
To me.
So if you are still listening now after we said we don't like Game of Thrones, although I know a lot of people didn't like this season, we pay attention to TV. Yeah. We know what's going on.
Yeah.
And then we said we don't like Succession, which we also tried a few times.
We did.
And we don't like Fleabag. If you're still listening now, you've passed through the point of no return, I think.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to love some of these shows that we're going to show you.
And if you do like those things, we're not telling you those shows are bad.
We're just saying
we don't
they're
care
not
for
our
them.
favorite.
Yeah.
They're not our favorite. And and I think that's great, because I do think that if people that love these shows, I think that is amazing. I don't think there's anything wrong with those shows. And I can say that too, and I brought it up before, and I do not have this on my list, but became recently, in the past year and a half, a huge fan of professional wrestling. Yeah, and I see the reasons.
That's been an unfortunate turn in our marriage.
But I see the reasons why people would say, hey, that's stupid, that's terrible. But I love it.
People like me.
Exactly. But I love it. And I think that it's okay to love the shows that you love. I think it's a nice thing that there are shows that everybody can love. Yeah. But I do think it's good to be aware of a lot of shows that I think that that's something our list has to it. At least my list does. So I think that'll be cool to open people's eyes and minds to some new things. That's what we do. And that's, I'll talk about some commonalities in mine just briefly, but I noticed a lot of my shows are either new shows or shows that I have recently discovered or something like that I that's what I like. I like a brand new show out there, especially, sometimes you get several seasons into something and it's like, I just want something new. Get me fired up with a new voice, new creator, all that kind of stuff. So, well, cool. Let's hear your number 10.
All right. So number 10 on my list is a show called The Letdown. And it's series 2 that came out in 2019.
Because it's British.
It is. It's not British. It's Australian.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. The Letdown is
that was not an Australian accent. I know we have at least one fan in Australia.
Yeah.
Oh. But on a serious note, I hope everybody's doing all right in Australia. Those fires.
For sure. Yeah. That looks just horrific, and we really feel for you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, The Letdown is an Australian show. That's why instead of saying seasons, they say series. So it's series 2 that premiered on May 29th, 2019. So this show originally aired on the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, which is like a public television network there.
Kind of like the BBC in
yeah, I think it's kind of like the BBC.
Yeah.
But Netflix was a co-producer, so both series are streaming on Netflix.
You said it was series 2?
Yes.
And so just to jump in here for a second, I've never watched this show. I've seen you have it on, so I don't know what all you got to say about it, but let's hear about why it's good. What is it all about?
Well, I'll say for if you've never seen it, here's the Netflix series description. Audrey, mother of a 2-month-old, joins a new parent support group where she makes some quirky friends facing various challenges and life changes. So that's kind of the basic premise of the whole series. Audrey, by the way, is played by Allison Bell, who also created the show. And then the season 2 kind of picks up with this. This is the season 2 description. As their babies turn 1, some of the parents group members make plans for another. Audrey and her partner Jeremy struggle to maintain a long distance relationship. So this is a funny show, and it's a show that I find pretty relatable because we've had a baby recently. Also, the main character on the show is a copywriter, which I am as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's just a lot for me to relate to.
And she's kind of, it's like, not like real, it shows all the sides of being a mom, I think, right? That's what the vibe I got from it.
It's not very glamorous.
Yeah.
It's not like they hate being parents, but it's also like, this is rough. And
now you like that better than, what's the show that's on Netflix?
Moms.
Working Moms.
Didn't care for Working Moms.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, this one, another thing I thought was kind of interesting reading about this was originally, the series was part of something called Comedy Showroom, which was like an Australian comedy anthology series where they showed like 6 different shows, and that kind of served as like pilots.
Kind of like Amazon pilot season,
yeah,
sort of
like that. That's what it sounded like. So that's kind of cool. This show also, by the way, it won Best Comedy Program in 2018 and 2019, and Best Performance in a Television Comedy by Alison Bell at the Australian Academy of Cinema and Television Arts Awards, which I'm guessing is maybe similar to like the Emmys.
Yeah, probably.
Here. Yeah.
Netflix has been putting a lot of Australian shows out there, as well as I think Hulu. What was something we were watching something recently, and we were trying to figure out? Oh, the those kids shows. Because we've been watching a lot of kids shows because we got The Investigators and Little Lunch. If you have little kids and you need something to throw on, The Investigators and Little Lunch on Netflix are very fun, very witty. Quick kind of sort of, they kind of have like a fast-paced sort of Modern Family Office kind of documentary kind of vibe to them. Very funny.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of good shows out of Australia, especially comedies.
Yeah.
Lately. Yeah, very cool. Definitely worth checking out.
Should we go on to my number 10?
Yeah.
All right. So my number 10, I don't know if it's on your list or not, but it is something that we watched together. So my number 10 is Veep. Season 7.
That is not on my list.
Not on your list.
It.
So the final season of Veep. Again, Veep created by Armando Iannucci. And let me give the season 7 description for you.
Okay.
Former Veep and president Selena Meyer, played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, is back on the campaign trail in season 7. And this is on my list for a few reasons. So first off, Veep is fantastic, and we covered Veep on one of our first episodes.
Yeah, so if you want to know more about just kind of the basics of the show, go back and listen to that episode.
Definitely check that out. And but this does something that I think that a lot of shows have a hard time with. This was the final season of Veep, and it really, I think, stuck the landing of like, it did it. Because a lot of times shows just kind of like, the final season, either they bring back a bunch of stuff and they force it in there, or it just is like all the stars kind of leave slowly and you're just left with like, I guess the show's ending. Or the finale's bad and that's no good. This show the show has changed a lot, I think, over time. It got sillier,
Yeah.
and I think partially probably in a reaction to, how politics have gotten more absurd.
Sillier? Yeah.
I wouldn't say that.
More horrifying?
More horrifying,
Yeah.
yes. But I think that it kept up with being witty, hilarious, and the plot, though it did seem forced just a little bit in there. It ended with a great finale. Nothing that I'm going to be like watching over and over again, but it's so hard to make like a decent finale and stuff.
Yeah, I agree. And, I did when the final season of Veep came out, I heard some criticism of people saying that they felt like the final season and the final episode were too positive, like they ended on too much of a happy note, which was interesting to me because I felt the total opposite. I felt
it was pretty dark.
A very dark.
I don't want to give
ending.
things away, but like
Right.
stuff with Buster, or not Buster.
Buster Bluth.
Buster Bluth.
Gary.
Gary, yes,
Yeah.
played by Tony Hale.
Yeah.
But some of that was dark.
Yeah, I thought it was a very dark, very bleak ending. That was my interpretation of it. So it was interesting to me to see other people saying, "Oh, it was too happy."
Can I read a little bit of one of the dark jokes that was in there, though? This is, I think it's from the premiere. It was either the first or second episode of season 7. And this is, I don't remember the full context, but Selena is saying, and I've got the lines here. Selena says, if I ever needed a miracle, it's right now. And then Richard Splett, played by Sam Richardson, comes in and says, ma'am, there's been a mass shooting in a mall in Phoenix. 27 people have been killed. And then Selena, everybody reacts in shock and sadness, and then Selena goes, oh, and then something dawns on her, and they all kind of have the same idea, and Selena goes, this can work for us. And then Dan says, yes, because we couldn't possibly announce now out of respect for the victims. I think that was announcing her election campaign. And Selena says, holla effing Luya. We have to send that shooter a nice thank you card. And Richard says, actually, he shot himself before he could be apprehended. I'll send something to his wife. And then Richard continues to read about the incident on his smartphone. And then he says, oh, actually, he shot her first. Which is so dark. It's so really terrible.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of the way you're describing how these characters are kind of like embracing this horrific
absurdity
turn of events.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of like the tone of the final season, I would say.
It really is. And there's some other like darker stuff that happens, but that's it's like a genius level of doing a joke like that and it not offending people,
right? Because obviously that's not funny.
That is not funny, right?
Yeah. but it's also like we're not rooting for these characters at this point. They're
right
not,
now, and they do show how terrible they are toward the end. But I think that's something too, especially nowadays. It feels like people are like, you just can't make jokes about certain things anymore. It's like, yeah, you can. They just have to be good,
right?
And it has to be clear that they're jokes and stuff. So, but I thought that that level of humor and that level of comedy coming in there in this final season, though absurd at times, I think was a great final season, and that's why it's on my list.
Yeah, definitely.
So check it out. It's on HBO. Get HBO. If you don't have it, you got a new season of Curb Your Enthusiasm coming out here soon. So get it. Also watch Veep.
Mm-hmm. Also, Armando Iannucci's new show.
Oh, yeah. Avenue 5, I think, is what it's called.
It could be good. It could be bad. But
we're
excited to try it out. So,
as a side note, too, Armando Iannucci, created Veep, but the showrunner for, I think it's a majority of the seasons, was David Mandel. And I follow him on Instagram. He's always posting fun behind the scenes things about Veep and stuff like that. So if you don't follow him on Instagram, he just seems just like a funny, great dude. So there you go. Cool. That's what I like about, get to follow people on Instagram, see what their lives are like. He just seems so proud of the show too. When I see his like posts, it's infectious to see the, months after it's ended, to see him post a little thing about, the finale or something like that. Yeah. So I think that's cool. Is fun. Also, I think one time he viewed my story, which was cool because I like a bunch of his posts. So he didn't follow me or anything, but he was probably like, what's this? Yeah. Hey, it is what it is. Exciting. Hey, what's your number 9?
Okay, number 9 on my list. I don't know if you're gonna like this choice. Okay. It is On Becoming a God in Central Florida, season 1.
Okay, let's tell us about the show.
So, On Becoming a God in Central Florida premiered on Showtime on August 25th, 2019. It was created by Robert Funk and Matt Lutsky, and it stars Kirsten Dunst, and Theodore Pellerin, who I had never seen before, but he plays Cody on the show, and he
Cody,
was my
what's his last name?
breakout star. I forget. I didn't.
You don't remember his
I didn't
last
write it
name?
down. What is it?
Bonar.
Oh yeah, it is. Cody Bonar. He was really great in it. Kirsten Dunst is great in it, and here's the Showtime description. This dark comedy series stars Kirsten Dunst as Crystal Stubbs, a minimum wage water park employee who lies, schemes, and cons her way up the ranks of the cultish, multi-billion-dollar pyramid scheme that drove her family to ruin in the first place. It also, by the way, stars Alexander Skarsgård from Big Little Lies. So the reason I think Mike is not thrilled with my putting this on my list is that this is a show that we both really loved from the beginning. It had a really strong start and a really rocky ending. Neither of us was happy with the ending. In fact, I don't want to give it away, but I would say it ends in what we feel is the worst possible way you can end a season of a show.
Well, look, I think that's... I loved the show. I loved this show. It almost made my list.
Yeah.
But the ending, I hated so much, it did not make my list. But so, ending aside, though, first off, Alexander Skarsgård,
Yes.
super hottie and a great character actor, I guess,
because
he is so different in this.
Super hottie in this. Yeah.
And but this show, I felt when I was watching this, like we talked about, everybody's got their own taste, and there's always something for you. This was, I felt like, made just for me. It felt like I don't have a good description for it, but it felt it was just so quirky and strange and
really unique. It's it reminded me of kind of like a little bit of like a Coen Brothers kind of vibe.
Yeah, that's right.
Also, like I don't if you have ever read a Thomas Pynchon novel. He wrote The Crying of Lot 49. He wrote Inherent Vice, which was made into a movie a few years ago.
Right.
It's got that same sort of absurdist, surreal kind of vibe to it.
Yeah.
But also very, very funny.
It's so funny. You know what? It probably should have made my list. It's just that, some of these shows I feel like just should be limited series.
Yeah.
And when it got to the end, I felt like, and again, we're not giving it away, but I felt like the characters did things that are not only their character would not act that way, but a normal human would not act that way.
It felt like this show from the beginning was going to be building toward a stronger, more interesting ending. And then I feel like they kind of left it open to a second season because it did get renewed. It's coming back for a second season.
Oh, it got renewed? Oh,
yeah.
Great. Yeah, it did the kind of thing where now that we're in the second season, this thing that happens at the end of the season has to be looming over everything going on, and that's just not enjoyable. And there's other shows, I guess I won't say which other shows do the same thing, because if you've watched that, I don't want to give it away, but there is another show that did not make my list for that reason that we've covered on the podcast, actually. And another show too that I think is coming back for a third season sometime. But
there are it's like a very common way to end a show.
I don't like
days,
it. I don't like it.
We don't like it. So I don't like where the season ended up, but the getting there was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun.
And I would say worth checking it out.
And I think we got Showtime just for that reason when we did it. Because the first episode was free, or maybe the first two episodes, and then we were like, we got to get Showtime. This show is great.
Kirsten Dunst is fantastic in it. I haven't seen her in too much lately. I know she was in a season of Fargo, but we didn't watch that.
No, and Kirsten Dunst, I'll just say as well, I mentioned Alexander Skarsgård as a hottie, but Kirsten Dunst in this, I know, I'm not saying you disagreed, but she just looked better than she's ever looked. I don't even know. I can't explain
Mike
it.
was a fan.
I was a big fan.
And again, the Theodore Pellerin, who plays Cody Bonar, he's really worth watching, and I feel like he's gonna have a great career. He was definitely the breakout star for me.
He was so funny. I want to see him in everything.
Me too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, side note too about Showtime. While we had Showtime when we were watching that, we also watched The Circus, which is
I almost put that on my list. I almost put
Oh,
season
really?
4,
Yeah.
put that on my list.
It's not on my
like,
list just because it's not that kind. It's a news program, but it covers the news of the week in such just
like a documentary.
It's like a documentary. Like there'll be, because we follow the news a lot, and there will be scenes that we saw throughout the week on, MSNBC or whatever, where it's like a press conference type of thing that kind of, gets played over and over. And then if you watch the circus, like you'll see then that same press conference from the point of view of Alex Wagner and John Heilman, and I forget the other guy's name in the cowboy hat, but you'll see them at that same press conference, and then they kind of turn and they go and talk to some senator or something like that. And it's just, that sounds boring, I guess, overall, but it's so real. Also, they always go and eat like fancy breakfasts and dinners.
And I know, which makes me jealous of them. And I really have a hard time watching shows where people eat things that look delicious, because like I don't like cooking shows or anything, because it just makes me hungry and mad.
Well, look, if you don't follow news very much, or if you do, but I really think if you don't follow it all and you just watch the circus on Showtime,
what a classy thing to do.
You would just find the news to be so interesting, I think. And that's coming back, I think, at the end of January on Showtime. And so, anyway, just a shout out to that show.
So we're going to be getting Showtime again for that.
We might be. That's so good. It's almost worth the $14.99 a month or whatever it is.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Or $12.99. I don't know. Anyway, but let's move on to my number 9. Now, my number 9 is a bit of a departure from the kinds of shows that I normally love. And I think you knew this was going to be on my list. This is a kid's show. And I, normally I don't think would give the same kind of credit to a kid's show as I would to, a prestige television show. But our child has been watching a lot of kids shows because we've been picking some and putting them on. And this show, it blows me away. And there's a few shows that did this, but this one, I think that there was something about it. Let me tell you what it is. It's called Archibald's Next Big Thing. And this
show is great.
It's so good. And
it's another show that it feels like, it was made for kids, but it was also made for us, specifically for our type of humor.
It really was. It's legitimately funny. We're a big fan of shows like Happy Endings, and I got some Happy Endings vibes from this. But I will say, this show was developed, it was created by Tony Hale and developed by Tony Hale, Drew Champion, and Jacob Moffat. And
it stars Tony Hale.
Actually, I should say this up front.
It's animated.
All 10 of my shows star Tony Hale.
Oh,
yes.
Good.
Yeah.
It's a recipe for success.
Exactly. Tony Hale, again, if you don't know who that is, he played Buster Bluth on Arrested Development, and he played Gary in Veep. And he wrote a book, actually, called Archibald's Next Big Thing. And this is based on that book, loosely, I guess. And here's a description. This is, I think, more of a description of the book, but this is when they announced the show. This is a description from Deadline.com. And it says, the story follows the adventures of Archibald Strutter, a simple chicken who yes-ands his way through life. Though living in the moment often leads him astray, Archibald always finds his way back home. Archibald's Next Big Thing is a fresh comedy about one chicken's joy and celebrating the journey, not just the destination. And I feel like that might be more for the book. I don't know if that's exact. I think the Netflix description was like, this chicken's having a good time or something like that. So I didn't use that, but it's basically a chicken named Archibald, and he just has fun little misadventures, and they're little like 12-minute episodes, 15-minute episodes with 2 in each one.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like how people must have felt when they, like grown-ups must have felt when they saw like SpongeBob SquarePants for the first time, and we're like, oh, my kid likes this show. Wait a second, what is this? This is hilarious.
Yeah, it's funny for everyone.
It's funny for everyone, and it's kind of disappointing that we don't have that shared culture anymore where everybody can't say, oh yeah, Archibald's Next Big Thing, man, that's hilarious.
Yeah,
because it's legitimately hilarious.
Like, I've never heard of that.
And I'm probably never gonna watch it.
Yeah.
But it's so good, and if you're like, hey, I don't know, maybe I will watch it, I guess. I'm not sure. I don't have kids, but maybe I'll check it out.
Yeah, it's funny even if you don't have kids.
It is. My favorite episodes are, one is called The Keymaster, and one is called Wheelie No Hands. And I will say, as a side note, those are both written by Eric Fogel, and he's the creator of the MTV series Celebrity Deathmatch. So, fun fact. But these are, more alternative humor kind of creators, I guess, in that way. It's not just like... It's not just a kid's show.
Right. And you mentioned that it kind of reminds you of the show Happy Endings, which we did an episode on. And 2 of the voice actors on Archibald's Next Big Thing are stars of happy endings.
Yeah, Casey Wilson and Adam Pally.
Yeah.
And also Julia Louis-Dreyfus, side note, has a role. She's in one episode.
Yeah,
and,
Mark Maron is in an episode.
Oh, yeah. The show...
There's a few other... Rosamund Pike is... she's
the narrator. Yeah.
From Gone Girl. Yeah.
The show, again... It has real jokes in it. It does, like I said, it reminds me of Happy Endings. It kind of reminds me of Veep a little bit too.
Yeah.
And just to set it up for you, I guess I'll give it away because it doesn't give it. There's not like an arch or a story arc throughout the season. There is an arch. Yes. Okay, that's enough. But if you do watch the episode, The Keymaster, it's the second half of the first episode. There's a part where these. Let me tell you what's going on in the episode because it's not going to spoil it. You're probably not going to watch it, but maybe this will be like, wait, what's happening in the show? Things have been going missing around town.
Yeah.
And Archibald finally, I guess, kind of figures it out. He falls into this well or something, and these moles have been stealing things because there's a leak. Anyway, the moles sing this song that is so funny. I can't describe. It's impossible to describe right now, but
it's very funny. It's a really good song. And
we sing it to our son all the time.
Yeah, sometimes it's the only thing that calms him down.
Yeah,
to hear the mole song.
But it's so wacky. I would compare this to a SpongeBob SquarePants or any other sort of alternative kind of Nickelodeon cartoon from like the late 90s.
Yeah. And in addition to the mole song, there's a lot of good music throughout the series.
There really is. Whoever is doing the music for this, there's something about the music brings emotion to it in a funny sort of retro 1980s kind of way. And the show's really, and this is not, I'm not like, because the rest of my shows too, you'll be like, oh, he clearly has good taste in shows, so this must be good. Each time I watch this show, because we just throw it on for our kid and it just plays throughout the day, each time I watch it, it gets better. And I notice other things.
More new jokes in it that you didn't notice before.
Or in the captions, I'll notice a joke in the background.
Yeah.
There's some running jokes. Like one example, I don't have it written down, but they'll say like... there's one where Archibald is like handcuffed for some reason and he's like, I found the criminal, and they're like, is it you? And he's like, no, I'm handcuffed for this other reason, and the guy in the crowd is like, okay, thanks for clarifying. And there's just silly little jokes like that.
And that guy like thanks people for clarifying
like several times throughout the season.
Yeah.
And I did hear that they're coming back with more episodes sometime this year.
That's
I think
exciting.
Too. So
the book, by the way, we wanted to order the book.
Not available on Amazon.
It's like not in print right now or something.
That's a bummer.
Yeah, so we're hoping they bring that back. We want it.
Also, kind of a fun fact around this show is that, oh my God, we're only on number 9 and we're like half hour into it. This is gonna be a fun episode here. But one thing about this show is that I follow DreamWorks Junior, which is the home for Archibald on Instagram, and I saw this comment on a lot of the posts on there, and it was always like, love that chicken. I can't wait for it. But I looked at it. It was an older woman that was like posting that on everything where they talked about Archibald. And I thought that was just weird. And
just older than us.
But she was like a mom age. A mom age. Like in her 50s probably. Maybe older. I'm not sure. And I was like, that's weird. That feels like when our parents or grandparents comment on things on Facebook and stuff like that. And so I clicked and I looked and I kind of recognized the name, and I was like, I think I recognize that from the opening credits of Archibald. I think that is the mother of like the head writer. And it was. Then I followed the head writer. I mean, like, it's not weird. Like, he's the head writer of the show. He's got a lot of, followers or whatever.
I thought you said it was like his mother-in-law or something.
I think it was mother-in-law. That's what it was. Yeah. But I just thought that was fun because
everybody's mom is just out there doing the same thing on Instagram.
Same thing. No matter if you're just like, posting a picture of your kid or posting a picture of you just like with your wife or whatever. They're, or if you're writing TV shows, they're doing the same thing. I think that's nice. Yeah. We're all connected in fun ways. Yeah. Let's move on to number 8.
Okay.
What do you got?
Let's do it.
Are we just going? We'll just start with you on each of them. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So at number 8, I have a show called This Way Up, Series 1. So, this is not Australian. This one is British.
Okay.
It was written by, I'm going to try to say this name correctly.
Oh boy.
Aisling B. She, by the way, plays Paul Rudd's wife on the show Living with Yourself on Netflix, if you watch that. But but she wrote This Way Up. She also stars in it. I think I read that she said she actually wrote the show while she was filming Living with Yourself. But this is a British show that was originally broadcast on Channel 4 in the UK, but it's streaming on Hulu, so you can watch it there. It began airing on August 8th, 2019, and here's the Hulu description. This Way Up is a comedy drama about moving on, moving forward, and trying to find happiness. Charming and funny Ayn is trying to pull her life back together after a teeny little nervous breakdown. Her sister, Shauna, is increasingly worried about both her sister and her own relationship issues with her boyfriend and the impending question of marriage. So the show, it's set in London, but it's about an Irish Catholic woman, and Aisling B is Irish.
Before we get too far into this, I just want to point out, I think we've said on the podcast before that we're usually not that into British shows. Don't know why exactly. Just aren't.
Yeah.
And we said at the beginning that we don't like Fleabag, but here you are with a British show.
I had an Australian it's
show.
Different.
No, but you have a British show now too, and an Australian show.
Although this was created by an Irish woman. So
maybe we're more into Ireland.
Maybe, because here...
Maybe we should watch Dairy Girls. Everybody says that's funny.
Yeah.
Dairy?
Dairy?
Dairy.
I don't know.
Well, it looks like Dairy.
We haven't seen it
They're
yet.
not like Dairy Girls milking things. I don't think. Anyway, keep going.
But this show, This Way Up, it also stars Sharon Horgan as Ayn's sister. If you don't recognize that name, Sharon Horgan was the creator and star of the show Catastrophe.
And that's on Amazon.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Which is also a
with
British
Rob Delaney
show. Yeah. Which I did watch Catastrophe. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I kind of felt Fleabag-ish about it.
Oh, okay. But you watched the whole thing.
I did.
It seemed kind of pleasant. You not pleasant, but you would have it on in the background sometimes, and I'd watch it.
Yeah. It's a decent show. But This Way Up. It also stars Asif Manvi. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Yeah, from the Daily Show.
Yeah. I've never read it.
Yeah, we gotta get around to that. So one thing I liked about it that kind of sold me on the show right away in the first episode, Ayn, the main character, she's an ESL teacher, and in the pilot episode we see her. It's like a scene where she's teaching a class of like adult ESL learners, and she's teaching them like the terms for various family members, and she's doing that using an episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians as like the example,
which we've covered on the podcast.
If you know me, you know I love the Kardashians, so yeah, I was sold right away. But it is kind of like a heartwarming show, but also it's very funny and kind of raunchy, and it's just kind of about someone who's had a rough time in life and is trying to kind of figure out what the next steps in their life are going to be.
Would I like it? I've never watched it.
I think that you would like it. Yeah.
Maybe we'll check it out.
Yeah.
Where can we watch that again?
This is on Hulu.
Okay.
Yeah. Or on Channel 4 in the UK.
There you go.
Yeah. And I haven't seen anything about a season 2. I hope it gets renewed. But as far as I know, there's just this one season.
Excellent.
One series. Check it out.
One series.
Yeah.
I should mention too that my number 9, Archibald's Next Big Thing, that's on Netflix. I think I forgot to mention that. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if I said this or not, but Aisling B, who created it and wrote it, she is also the star of it.
Okay, there you go. One of those where the creator is also the star.
Exactly.
All right. What are we on, number 8?
Yes.
Okay. My number 8, I'll be interested to see if this appears on your list as well.
Okay.
My number 8 is The Act.
It is not on my list, although it is a show that I really liked.
I loved this show. This is on Hulu, and we have actually covered this on the podcast. I think this was one of the first shows where we were like, this is a little bit of a more recent show. Let's check it out, and let's do it on the podcast.
Yeah, and I considered putting it on my list, but then I thought, Mike will do it, so I'll try to pick some things that he doesn't have on there.
All right. So if you want some deep information on The Act, go ahead and listen back to that podcast, but I'll kind of breeze through this one because we've talked about it before on here. But The Act is created by Nick Antosca and Michelle Dean, and here's the series description. It says The Act is a seasonal anthology series, which they say that in there, and I want another. They didn't announce anything. Hulu announced a bunch of new stuff. They didn't say anything about a new season of The Act.
Yeah, and I'm confused because like the title, The Act, it like applies so well to the first season, so I don't know what they're gonna have.
Yeah,
that could still
but
be
The Act
called
can have a lot of meanings.
I guess so.
But they kind of wrote themselves into a corner with
Yeah,
that
a little
title.
bit.
But anyway, The Act is a seasonal anthology series that tells startling, stranger-than-fiction true crime stories. The first season follows Gypsy Blanchard, a girl trying to escape the toxic relationship she has with her overprotective mother. Her quest for independence opens a Pandora's box of secrets, one that ultimately leads to murder.
Ooh.
Yeah, and this
dun,
show,
dun.
this is a show
I
that
did that when we did
I definitely read it like that when we did it. So, but I think that this show, I'll just talk about it briefly. I loved waiting for the next episode. They didn't release them all at once. The anticipation was high.
Yeah.
And this did something where I felt like each episode felt unique in the kind of story that it was telling and sort of the way that it was telling that story. And so I felt like you didn't really know. It wasn't just like, oh, here's another episode. Wonder what's going to happen this week. It was like, this episode is really focusing on this theme, or this episode is legitimately scary.
Yeah, and it's a show that's interesting because it's like it's not 100% clear who the good guy and who the bad guy, or who the good guys and
in real
bad
life.
guys are.
I mean,
Yeah,
there's been controversy because I think
story.
Gypsy is being released from prison soon or something.
Right. Yeah. So it's like it's deals with a lot of gray areas. Which is kind of how life. I mean, it's a true story. It's how life is. It's
another sad one too. When you do realize, like, oh, this is true. It's sad for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody gets murdered, but also there's manipulation. There's mental health and that sort of thing. And seeing how vulnerable some of these people are. It's just it's pretty sad when it gets as it's building to the end. It's emotional.
It's definitely a dark show.
Yeah, it's very creepy, and I just loved it though. I thought that they did a really
well
good
done.
job. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do next. It reminded me a lot of American Crime Story, and which I love as well. So I'm looking forward to whenever we come back with some more of that too.
Definitely.
But yeah, it reminded me of that. So if you like those shows, check it out. Check out The Act.
Yeah.
Let's move on to number 7. What do you got?
All right. So number 7. I have a show that I'm still in the midst of watching. I've only watched, I think I've watched 4 episodes, maybe 5 episodes.
Okay. Well, let's hope they don't ruin it at the end.
I know. Let's hope they don't pull in on Becoming a God in Central Florida. We'll see. Anyway, my show at number 7 is Dollface Season 1, which premiered on Hulu on November. Hulu. I said that weird.
Hulu.
Premiered on Hulu on November 15th, 2019. Here's the Hulu description. A young woman, after being dumped by her longtime boyfriend, must deal with her own imagination when she literally and metaphorically re-enters the world of women in order to rekindle the female friendships she left behind.
Okay.
So that, you can't totally tell from that description, but this show is real weird.
It's
real
weird.
Bizarre.
I've seen the first episode and a little bit of the second episode.
Yeah.
It's real weird. Who's it star, did you say?
It stars Kat Dennings.
One of the Two Broke Girls.
One of the Two Broke Girls, also from the show, or from the movie 40-Year-Old Virgin. Her character is named Jules. It also stars Brenda Song, who she's on a few episodes of New Girl. She's also apparently one of the stars of The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody and some other shows that I haven't seen. But to see her, you would recognize her. Shay Mitchell from Pretty Little Liars, and Esther Pavitsky from Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, and I recognized her from Difficult People. So it's got a great cast. Everybody does a really good job in it. And the show, so when we first threw this on to try it out, like from the first scene, my very first reaction, I think I said this to you, was these people aren't acting the way real people act.
But it ends up making sense.
It ends up making sense, and that ends up being a good thing because it is kind of going for like an absurd kind of feel. It
reminds me at times, at least, and this is not a bad thing, but the show, and I only know it from watching one episode and then seeing commercials when I used to watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, because it was an FX show, but it reminds me a little bit of that show Man Seeking Woman, which if you're familiar, or even if you've seen the commercials, it's very like surreal. Like he'd be on a date and the girl would be like an octopus or something for some reason, because it was a metaphor for relationships.
Right. And it's all, everything's like kind of like heightened, and it's I don't know, if you kind of like view it the way I think it's meant to be viewed, as you're kind of seeing things through the main character's, how she's feeling things, as opposed to necessarily how they're actually unfolding.
Right.
Where everything's kind of heightened. It also kind of reminded me of the show, a show that I really love called Wonder Falls, which was a short-lived Fox series from the mid-2000s that probably no one's ever seen, but you should watch that one too.
You know what, though? I just think this just reminded me. I was trying to remember what the show... We've been watching this kid's show on Netflix called The Healing Powers of Dude.
Yes.
And...
another good show you should check out.
Yeah, it is another good show. But it's about a kid who has social anxiety, and then he has these visions as he's being... as he's going through his anxious things.
Yes.
I think that's what this reminded me of. Because I was like, we watched something recently where somebody does something similar to this, and I think it was Dollface.
Yep, for sure. But it's a very interesting show. It's very funny. I really am enjoying it so far. The show was created by Jordan Weiss or Jordan Weiss. I'm not sure. Weiss. But anyway, she wrote it like right out of college as... She wrote the series as like a writing sample when she was trying to get a job writing for New Girl, apparently.
Yeah, okay.
And she like showed it to like a friend of hers who was in the industry, who ended up showing it to Margot Robbie. And Margot Robbie ended up turning it into this show, Dollface. It's produced by Lucky Chap Entertainment, which is Margot Robbie's production company.
I think I read something recently about how Margot Robbie was like doing a really good job of that Hollywood kind of transitioning into being like a producer and doing the behind the scenes things too, in addition to being like an A-list movie star. Mm-hmm. Shout out to Margot Robbie.
Yeah,
Look,
for sure.
Margot, if you want to come on the podcast or anything like that.
right, yeah. But yeah, so Jordan Weiss had all the right connections to make this show happen, but also did a really good job because this show is really good. So
excellent.
Awesome. It's cool to me that she is just kind of brand new to this and got this really cool show made that stars a lot of famous people, and it's on Hulu, and it's been renewed for a second season. And yeah.
Cool. Hey,
let's look forward to watching the rest of it.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to my number 7.
Okay.
I imagine this is on your list somewhere. My number 7 is another show about a girl going through some sort of emotional types of things and seeing things and that sort of thing. This is an Amazon original, and it's called Undone.
That is on my list.
What number do you have it
I
at?
have it at number 4 on my list.
Number 4. I've got it at number 7. So let's cover it now. So I've got some info on it. It's created by Raphael Bob Waxberg, who is the creator of BoJack Horseman. Though this has, I think, a very different vibe. I never actually watched BoJack Horseman, and nothing against it. I might watch it someday, but I haven't watched it. And also created by Kate Purdy. Here's the series description. Undone is a half-hour, genre-bending animated dramedy that explores the elastic nature of reality through its central character, Alma, a 28-year-old living in San Antonio, Texas. After getting into a car accident and nearly dying, Alma finds she has a new relationship to time. She develops this new ability in order to find out the truth about her father's death. Ooh. That is a wild description.
It is.
That is. I remember like just kind of clicking through and being like,
wait, what?
And then I watched the trailer and I was like, I don't know. And this show just blew my mind. So cool. It's got all the things I like. Mystery about death, a fun, weird reality thing, surreal going on.
Yeah.
I'll read real quick. This is the Rotten Tomatoes critics consensus, just to clarify it a little bit. It says, a kaleidoscopic existential crisis, Undone bends the rules of space, time, and rotoscoping to weave a beautiful, surreal tapestry that is at once fantastical and utterly relatable.
Good job, Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah,
that captured it pretty well.
It's animated, but it's rotoscoped, which is sort of like the movie Waking Life. I mean, it is like that.
Scanner Darkly.
Or a Scanner Darkly, where the actors are like acting, but they've animated over them.
So you can tell who the actors are.
Yeah,
but they're
and it's
animated.
a little weird looking, but there's also these surreal things that happen to make it kind of exciting. And this stars Rosa Salazar. You might have seen her in Parenthood.
Yeah,
which we covered on the podcast.
That.
She's the one that wants to like take what's her face's baby, or she wants to give her baby away. Julia wants to take her baby.
Her baby.
Yeah. And also it has Bob Odenkirk, who you might know from Better Call Saul, who's a very good actor and also very funny. Yeah. He's in a lot of things.
Yeah.
But this show just, I just like, they're like 20 25-minute episodes, and you're just like, oh my gosh, let's watch the next one. I want to know what happens. And I think I'm assuming there's not going to be a second season. It wouldn't make sense to, really.
Right. I hope that they leave this as a limited series. And
it was just so good.
Yeah, and it's got a little bit of not a little bit of, it's got a lot of ambiguity about, we don't know whether the main character is kind of going crazy, like developing schizophrenia or something, or if she's actually time traveling and actually interacting with her father who's passed away. It's really interesting. And I came across this as I was reading a little bit about the show, but Kate Purdy, one of the creators, actually based this on some of her own experiences, and that she has like a family history of schizophrenia and had experienced like a breakdown, and she finds out in real life, she found out that she had like enlarged like brain ventricles, which is what the main character Alma has in this show, which is like, they're kind of wondering, like, is that something that's opening me up to being able to time travel, or is it causing schizophrenia? That's kind of the premise of the show, and that's cool. Something that she was going through in real life. So I think it's really awesome that she was able to like channel that kind of crazy experience in her life into this awesome show. Yeah,
it's a great show. I think that, we talked a little bit about how when, these are not the best shows, but they're our favorite shows. I think about things like award season and things like that. This should have been in the awards conversations. Yeah. I know that those are kind of stupid because they just pick whatever. But it was certainly the best animated show of the year. I mean, I don't know what else was up for anything. And maybe it was. I don't know. Maybe it was up for awards. I don't know. Yeah, and the main actress, Rosa Salazar, I think did a really awesome She did fantastic job. I really liked her. One thing I'll say about her is I felt this way when I saw her on Parenthood too, is that my initial reaction every time I see her is to be afraid, because she is in American Horror Story, the first season? Yes, the very first season of American Horror Story, Murder House. In the first episode, she is one of the nurses that gets killed and comes back as a ghost. Whenever I see her, I'm like a little bit scared. But she's really good. Anyway, let's go on to your number 6. So that was your number 4, okay. And that was my number 7. It's on Amazon. It's Undone. But you're number 6 now. Okay, so at number 6, I have a show that we've done on the podcast before. Okay. Glow. Yeah, season 3 came out on Netflix this year, August 9th. Here's the season 3 description. As the gang kicks off a run of shows in glamorous Las Vegas, power struggles, sexual tension, and shifting priorities threaten their bond. And if you've never seen Glow before, you can listen to our episode of the podcast. Listen to our episode where we go into more detail. But basically, it's about a group of female wrestlers in the 1980s. It's a fantastic the gorgeous show. Ladies of wrestling. Yeah. That's what Glow stands for. And this is we'll just kind of breeze through it because it's we have covered it on the podcast, but not season 3. But not season 3, and I did not put it on my list, but not because I didn't like it. It was it was between that and some other things, and I wanted to get some other shows on there. And it had a Christmas episode that I really enjoyed. I think, was that the final episode of this season? I'm not sure. It might have been final or second to last. I can't remember. There's a Christmas episode in season 3 that really stood out to me, where they have a wrestling match, which they like kind of choreograph their own matches, and they were doing a Christmas Christmas Carol, and I really liked the way that they did a wrestling match based on the story of A Christmas Carol. I think that's played out in a really cool way. This show, I think it does something too that I think a lot of Netflix shows do as well, and in a good way. I think it's a cool formula where they'll have the first couple episodes sort of setting up the season, getting back into things, and they'll have like, oh, this is a really good episode, and then they'll have like an episode that's maybe a little bit longer and like emotional, and then some short episodes. I don't know, like I know because there's the episode where they're out camping, and it's just like, oh man, this is the turning point in the season, and it's a really good episode too. Yeah. So, but I think that season 3 was really good, and I know it's coming back for, I think, one more season. Yeah, it's been just one more fourth and final season. Yeah, and I know like it's it's going to be the final season, but this is a show that I could just watch every year. Every year it's so good, and you could go so many places with it. It's just a really good show.
It is.
Makes me feel like a strong, powerful woman too.
Me too.
Yeah. Got anything else about season 3 there?
Nope, that's it.
All right. What number are we on? Number 6?
Yes. 6.
Okay. My number 6. This show came out of nowhere for me. I don't think it's on your list. Of course it's not on your list. This is on Netflix. It is called It's Bruno.
Oh, nope, it's not
with
on
an
my
exclamation point at the end. This show, I loved this show so much. It was close to being number 1. 5 away from it. But this is created.
You're just
So stupid.
You're ridiculous.
This was created, directed, and written / co-written by and starring. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. Solvin Name also goes by Slick Name.
Isn't he like a rapper or something?
He's also a rapper and a director. He's directed some episodes of some other TV shows like Power on Starz, and I think that's on Starz, and some other shows. And let me read the series description for you. An old school Brooklyn native devotes his days to caring for his adorable dog Bruno and making sure the neighbors show his pooch the proper respect. This show is unlike any TV show I've ever seen. It's very absurdist.
We have a lot of absurdist shows on our list.
We like.
We're into it.
Yeah. This show, and when I say it's unlike anything I've ever seen, I think you saw a little bit of it. It's probably unlike anything you've ever seen as well.
Yeah.
I think that everybody should at least check this out.
The closest thing it reminds me of, and I can't think of one specifically, but I feel like back in the 90s, there would be like little shorts on Nickelodeon. Where
it does remind
weird,
you, yeah. In the early 90s almost.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the kind of show that would fit as one of those, or like a Pete and Pete type thing. I mean, it's a little violent, honestly. More violent than something
not that violent. You only watched the first few episodes and they all ended the same way.
There's implied violence. Yeah.
So yeah, this is one reason this made my list is because one thing that I've noticed that I love is a new unique voice coming out, which I think yours is sort of like that too. Because it's like, I watch this and it's just, I really can't describe it right now, but I just found it to be so fascinating. And the star has such an energy that he seems so cool and confident and funny, and the fact that he is also a director and a musician. I don't think he's like big in music necessarily, but some of his music, I like this one song called Turn Tonight, and it's like, I can't describe, but it's he's a rapper. It's something that I would be shocked if like 5 years from now he was not a household name, but like someone where it's like, oh yeah, he's got this movie out and he's famous and stuff.
Very talented,
very driven.
Yeah.
Also follow him on Instagram. He seems just like a really great guy.
Yeah, didn't he like interacted with your?
Oh, he did interact with my post. Yeah. I posted about it and he posted something back, and then I posted.
That was nice. That's always exciting when that happens.
It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a show though, and the episodes are like 12 minutes, 17 minutes, and it's just a really wild show. It made me want to be like a dog person too. I'm more of a cat person, but I understood it. I understood his love for the dog. It's absurd.
It's how we feel about our cat.
Yeah. It's so check it out. Watch the trailer if you're not sure.
It stars one of the stars of Glow.
Oh yeah,
as well.
Yeah. I don't want to say too much about her character, Glow, but I forget the name too. But I don't want to say too much about her character. But it's it's a good show too.
Yeah.
There's like a story arc throughout the season too, and it kind of ends. This ends with a fun cliff, not a cliffhanger because you're not that invested in it because it's more just a fun hang. But it's kind of cool how they do the little cliffhanger ending. I don't know if there's going to be season 2 or not. Even if there's not, it's not a big deal with the cliffhanger. But it's kind of a fun because there's like bad guys in the show. So anyway, it's great. It's Bruno on Netflix. Check it out.
Yeah.
All right, number 5.
Okay, so at number 5, I have season 3 of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which is a show that we've covered on our podcast before. We covered the pilot episode.
And I put The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel on my list as well. I put it at number 3.
Oh, Okay.
Yeah.
So awesome. So do you want to go ahead and read the season description for us?
Yeah. So Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is created by Amy Sherman Palladino. And the season 3 description: Midge and Susie discover that life on tour with Shy is glamorous but humbling, and they learn a lesson about show business they'll never forget. Joel struggles to support Midge while pursuing his own dreams. Abe embraces a new mission, and Rose learns she has talents of her own. Is the lesson they never forget what they learned in the last episode?
I think so.
It must be. No spoilers here, but interesting description.
So if you've never seen The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel and you haven't listened to our episode on it, go back and do that. But anyway, it's about a female stand-up
comedian
comic
in the 1950s.
Yeah, maybe are we into the 60s?
I think we're into the
season
60s
three?
in this
We might be
season.
into the
Yeah,
60s.
it's the 1960s. I think they say that over and over. And in this season, she goes on tour with Shy Baldwin, who is kind of like a Sammy Davis Jr. type of. Although I guess I don't think this applies to Sammy Davis Jr. I don't want to give away any spoilers, but he has a secret. Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, so, oh my God, this show, it's just, if somebody was like, I'm going to make the perfect TV show, this is it.
Yeah, it's a really fantastic show. In season 3, we're getting more into like, so in season 1, we kind of saw how Midge, and I guess her husband, Joel, now her ex-husband, kind of shook up their lives by getting divorced and her embarking on this career in stand-up comedy. And now we're starting to see how everybody in their world's lives are kind of being shaken up, and how they're all kind of like plotting a new course for themselves. Midge's parents, Joel's parents to a certain extent, Midge's manager, Susie, everybody's kind of like making some bold moves and seeing what else they can do in life. It's interesting,
and it's a fun season. They go to Vegas, they go to Florida, I think, and I think this is a show that is, I think everybody would love this show.
Yeah,
and it's not only good, it's beautiful to look at.
Yeah, it really is. It's a gorgeous show, kind of in the way that Mad Men is, but even more fantastical.
Yeah, I would say
guess,
times
than
10.
Mad Men.
Like if Mad Men was just like, hey, we're gonna just, I don't know, it's shot so beautifully too, and it's just, it's an amazing show. It's like when this goes up for awards, it's like, I mean, why
give
would
it all the awards.
Give it all the awards? It's the best show. I don't know. I mean,
it's like somebody really tried hard to make this show. Good job, guys.
Exactly.
You did it.
So if you've never watched Maisel, watch it and make it through that third
women.
season.
It's for everybody.
Yeah,
it's really good.
The name of the
Check
show could use some work, I think. It's definitely not just for women. It's for the men too. Watch that first episode. Watch all the way to the end of that first episode.
And it's on Amazon Prime. Did we say that?
I don't know if we did, but it is.
Yeah.
All right. That's your number 5?
Yes.
All right. My number 5 is also probably on your list.
Okay.
It is season 2 of I'm Sorry.
Yes, that is.
What number you got it at?
Number 1 on my list. My very favorite show of 2019.
Your very favorite show of 2019. Yes. That is a show that's on True TV, and it's also on Netflix now. And created by Andrea Savage. I'll read the series description here. This is for the whole series. It says, life is a series of awkward situations for comedy writer and mom Andrea, thanks to plenty of neuroses and a knack for sticking her foot in her mouth.
Yeah.
Now, this is a show we've covered on the podcast.
Yep, so go back and listen to our episode about the pilot.
Yeah, but season 2, we've been watching season 1 and 2 over and over because it's another show that our kid, funny enough, that he enjoyed watching.
Yeah.
He's a baby.
He kind of like gets some, which I think is kind of a common thing for little kids or babies to do, is to like really want to watch the same thing over and over again.
Right.
And for a while that was I'm Sorry for some reason.
Yeah, and I'm Sorry. It's about
it's not a kid's show.
No, it's not a kid's show, and it's just so funny. What do you want to say about season 2 specifically?
It has some really fun like running gags throughout it.
Season 1 had Shorts.
Yeah.
Season 2 has
who, by the way, Shorts is a character, a guy who wears shorts consistently. And he does make a comeback in season 2. So we have some throwbacks to season 1.
And season 2's got tank top.
Tank top.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, there's a running gag with a tank top in season 2. I'm trying to think of what my favorite episode of season to
Mine might be the Christmas episode,
Yeah,
which
which I
we
think
covered
we
on the
talked about.
Christmas episode of the podcast here.
Yeah, that was a really good one. But this show, it just like never fails to like make me laugh and put me in a better mood, which is, as we said, we've watched the show 10,000 times because our baby made us, and I was never upset to put it on. I always enjoyed watching
always
it.
Good.
Every single time I laugh and laugh. And everyone we've recommended this show to, they say they've never heard of it. Then they go and watch it, and it's their new favorite show.
Everyone.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking like people our age or whatever. I'm talking older family members, coworkers, everybody.
Yeah. This show is really something special. It's really hilarious.
It's the funniest show on TV, and there's a third season coming out sometime this year on True TV.
Yeah.
You got to watch it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Go back and listen to our episode on the pilot.
Yes, definitely. All right. That was my number 5.
All right.
And that was your number
My
1.
number 1.
So no suspense now to the number 1. But let's talk about your number 4.
Oh, okay. Well, no.
Or
my number 4 was Undone. So
we already talked about it. You know, when we were like we were on number 8 and we were a half hour in, I was like, oh my God, this podcast is going to be 6 hours long.
Yeah, but some of our
now we overlap a little bit closer.
And some are shows that we did episodes on before, so we're not going to talk in detail. Yeah.
Okay, so your number 4 was Undone.
Yep.
So we're on my number 4.
Yes.
Okay, my number 4 is not on your list. It is Mindhunter season 2,
which is a good show. It was hard to watch.
It was hard to watch. So
it's dark.
Mindhunter is on Netflix, and it's created by Joe Penhall. The series description: in the late 1970s, 2 FBI agents expand criminal science by delving into the psychology of murder and getting uneasily close to all too real monsters. And let me read this season 2 description specifically. Okay. The behavioral science unit's killer instincts move from theory into action when the FBI joins in a high-profile hunt for a serial child murderer. That's why it's tough to watch.
Yes.
But it focuses throughout this season mostly on the Atlanta child murders of the 1970s.
I think
somewhere in the
70s,
70s, yeah. And this show we have not covered on the podcast.
No, and we really should.
We really should.
It's a good show.
I love this show. It's such a great true crime, you know, mixed with like the Mad Men era almost.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's inspired by true crime, and some of the stories in it are fictional and some of them are real.
Yeah, it's because it's the real stories, but they're solved by sort of these fictional, you know, based on real people, but fictional detectives that have their own lives. But it is based on a book too that was written. There's that blending of reality and stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of the show is like based on when I think the FBI was first starting to get into criminal profiling and how that was kind of like a new thing of like thinking about like the psychology of like why someone would kill or why somebody would become a serial killer specifically. Like that was a new term. And how they're able to start solving crimes based on thinking about how people think, which we kind of see in the show is like an unpopular opinion at first, and like the main character on the show really has to kind of sell this idea to the people he's working with. Yeah,
and this is a cool show too, in that like the cops are not the detectives, the FBI agents are not they're always struggling with like, this is the way that we need to do this, but everybody's like, no, just solve the case or just do that.
And they just kind of want to write off the murderers as, oh, that person's just a monster.
Right.
So we can't try to understand what they're doing. There's no explanation for it. They're just terrible. But if you think like that, then you're not getting ahead of things. You're not like able to anticipate what somebody's next move might be or who might become a killer.
Yeah.
So yeah,
just such a good show.
Yeah,
and
it's very smart. It's very very interesting.
I listened to a podcast about the Atlanta child murders. I think it was called like Monster or something like that. Atlanta Monster, maybe.
I think so.
Yeah, and so that was cool too, as like a, you know, getting set up for watching this to kind of have an idea of what they're talking about and stuff. But yeah, just a fantastic show. You got to check it out. It's a little disappointing because it took like 2 years in between seasons. And then I just read that I guess when you're on a show, the actors, they're kind of contracted in a way where they can't take other certain work so that they're available to do the show they're on, because you're contracted for like 6 years or whatever. But and I saw that they just sort of not release them, but whatever the term is, allow them to go take other jobs and things like that, which doesn't mean that it's not coming back for a third season, but it does mean that it's not coming back anytime soon.
That makes me wonder how they do a show like Curb Your Enthusiasm or something, where it comes back just kind of whenever Larry David feels like bringing it back. I'm not sure.
Although this show, it's I mentioned the creator's name, but it's also, I think a lot of the episodes are directed or maybe produced also by David Fincher, the director. And he, I think in an interview, said that he's been doing a lot of other work and kind of expanding what he's working on. And then it wouldn't be right to keep these people all under contract when he has no intention of doing Mindhunter anytime soon.
Sure.
But, and this is a show that we were like, are we going to even know what's going on? It's been so long, but we're like, it's a great show. We got to get back into it either way. And it's fantastic.
Yeah. And I think in this day and age, there's always hope for any show to come back.
That is true. Which leads me into my next show, The Conners.
That's not on your list.
That's not on there.
But it is an example of how nothing is ever truly dead. They can resurrect any show these
Which
days.
leads me to my next show, Last Man Standing.
Okay.
Okay.
Are we ready for my number 3?
We're ready for your number 3, and we already did my number 3, which was Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Oh, okay.
So let's hear your number 3.
My number 3 is season 1 of Pen 15.
Pen 15, another Hulu. Hulu getting some love on the podcast.
Yeah, Hulu. They were crushing it this year. What can I say?
I think it's too because they put out some unique shows.
Yes, they do.
Which Netflix does too, but Hulu only puts out, they don't have 10 new series coming out every week, and they're very unique. And this is one. And I only watched a little bit of this show, but tell me about it.
You need to come back and
watch
this with me because it was really good. Okay,
have you ever joined the Pen 15 Club, by the way?
I think I knew what the Pen 15 Club was before anyone ever asked me to join it, and I did not join it.
Okay.
We'll just leave it. We're not going to spoil it for our listeners what that
the Pen
means.
15 Club is?
So if you guys want to join the Pen 15 Club, go for it.
I got a pen here. Let me see your hand real quick.
Anyway, Pen 15 season 1 premiered on Hulu on February 8th, 2019. It was created by Maya Erskine and Anna Konkle, who also star in it, and by Sam Zivibleman.
I guarantee that's not how you pronounce it.
Zivibleman. I think it's important to give the creators their fair due, so that's why I'm spelling these names that I cannot pronounce.
I like it.
Okay. All right, but anyway, here's the Hulu description. Pen 15 is middle school as it really happened. Maya Erskine and Anna Konkle star in this adult comedy, playing versions of themselves as 13-year-old outcasts in the year 2000, surrounded by actual 13-year-olds, where the best day of your life can turn into the worst with the stroke of a gel pen. I really like that description for this series. It's great. But anyway, as that description kind of alluded to, the two stars of this show are adult women, probably around 30,
and they're playing
middle schoolers.
Yes.
And you would think, kind of convincingly so. They can of pass almost as middle schoolers.
We talked before about a lot of our shows are kind of absurd.
Yeah.
This is one.
Yeah. And but all their classmates are actual children.
Yeah. It sounds like it sounds like a weird little gimmick at first, but you see it and it works.
Yes. Yeah. And it's I think that they probably based a lot of it on their own experiences. And I was in middle school in the year 2000, which is when the show was set, so I could totally relate to so much of what is going on.
Yeah, I was in, I think, 8th grade. So
yeah, and the show, it's a very funny show, but it's also a show that really makes you think about how, like, the problems that you deal with, the issues you deal with, and the things you're kind of fixated on in middle school, they're looking back might seem kind of trivial, but at the time that you're going through it, it's like, oh, this is your whole world, and it means everything, and it's a huge deal. And I think having the adult actors like play themselves as middle schoolers kind of like brings home that point.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, very cool, very unique kind of show.
Very. And it has been renewed for a second season. I don't think they've announced yet when that is going to be airing, but I'm really excited about it. And I'm also excited for you to watch this show with me so I can rewatch it.
All right. I'll have to check it out. It's interesting how many of these shows we watch individually from each other.
Yeah. It is.
Okay, so that was your number 3.
Yes.
And my number 3 was The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Oh, okay.
So you are on to your number 2.
Okay, my number 2 is season 1 of Ramy, also on Hulu.
1 of Ramy.
Yeah.
That is my number 1.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Good choice. That's a really good show.
Dude, this show is so good.
And we did an episode on the pilot of it, so
we did.
Go back and listen to that for more information.
Ramy Youssef recently won the Golden Globe for Best Actor in a Comedy Series.
Yeah, he's the creator and the star.
Yeah, and his little acceptance speech, I think he was like, made a joke about how nobody's seen that show or whatever, which is ridiculous because you got to watch this show.
For sure. Do you want to read the description?
Yeah, I've got here... created by Ramy Youssef, Ari Katcher, and Ryan Welch. And the series description, Ramy Hassan is a first-generation Egyptian-American who is on a spiritual journey in his politically divided New Jersey neighborhood. Ramy will bring a new perspective to the screen as it explores the challenges of what it's like being caught between a Muslim community that thinks life is a moral test and a millennial generation that thinks life has no consequences. That description sounds kind of boring, kind of highbrow.
Yeah.
This show is, it's number 1 for me because what I really love to see, and I kind of said that at the beginning, is these new voices, new unique creators coming out, putting out a show, and just knocking it out of the park. I loved it so much.
Yeah, and one of the things I love about Ramy is like it's super relatable, even though it is like the main character is someone very different from me. Like it's about a Middle Eastern American Muslim man, and that sort of identity is a big part of the show.
Yeah.
And yet I can relate to it well.
Yeah, I think that's something, it sounds like just a white liberal talking of like, I really like this show because I like seeing what it's like being an Egyptian in America, and now I can relate to it. Like it's, but it really is like I don't know about people like that, and
but
I know that
like everybody is kind of going through similar sorts of things, even if superficially they're different.
And this show even takes it takes like a different kind of look toward religion than. Like, that's so different. Not only that he's Muslim, but that he is very into his religion.
Yeah, that he's maybe more religious than his family
his family.
Which is different. I think a lot of the times you see kind of the push-pull of religion going the other way, where the younger generations are less religious than their families are.
And it's something
I think
that...
we talked about that in our episode.
Yeah, and it's something that's... it's unique, but also the kind of thing that I believe that Ramy Youssef, the person, probably has a lot of those same beliefs as well. I don't think that was all just for the character. I'll make him more religious than I am or whatever, And I think like as a person, for me, I'm like, that's not the kind of person or show that I gravitate toward.
Right.
So, but it's interesting to see the way they do it in the episode or in the show.
Yeah.
It's not like this guy's kind of too religious. I don't really get it or like it, but I think it's unique and interesting, and I believe it.
Yeah. Another thing I think is interesting about the show is I think it's clearly based on Ramy Youssef's real life and experiences to a certain extent. And so it's interesting to me watching it to kind of see the difference between the character Ramy and what he is thinking, and then you can kind of tell that Ramy, the creator of the show, the actual person, maybe has a sort of different perspective on what the character is doing. Like, whereas the character, I think, often comes across as kind of judgmental of other people, it's kind of like the creator of the show is kind of like pointing out how that's a flaw in the character. Do you kind of get that sense as you're watching it? So I just think that's kind of interesting how anybody like looking back on themselves in the past, you kind of have a new perspective on the situation, like a more enlightened viewpoint, and that comes through somehow in the way he's telling these stories. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah. So just a great show. And it's something, too, that's coming back for a second season. I think May 29th, they announced is when that's coming back.
Yeah, we're really excited for
I'm
that.
excited about it. It's got, who's the actor that's going to be in it, too? I think Mahershala Ali. I heard
that?
He's from True Detective Season 3.
Is he like the main guy?
Yeah, he's the main guy.
Oh, yeah.
I heard he's going to be in it. I don't remember if I heard this right or not, because I've heard a few stories like this about him, but I think he said like he's like a fan of the show, and he like called up Ramy and said he wanted to be on it. I think he also did the same thing on True Detective, where he said, like, I want to be he was going to play the other character.
The sidekick guy, like the other detective.
He's like, no, I'm going to do it if I'm the star.
Yeah, that guy is just like taking
But
charge.
I think I heard the same thing about the movie Blade, where he like called the Marvel people and said, I'm going to play Blade, and they said yes.
I didn't know you could do that. I'm going to start calling people and say,
I don't know. I don't know what
he
was in. He was in Moonlight, which was like a Best Picture technically.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it was, but they called the other movie. But that was when La La Land, won for a minute.
Right.
I don't know what else he's been in, but when you see him in anything, you're like, yes, I will give that man anything he wants.
That's cool. I'm
the
excited
best
to see him
actor.
in something else.
So I think he's going to be in it,
Yeah, season 3 of True Detective is not on my list.
Not on
it was
my
not
list either.
great, but
although we liked it along
really
the way.
like him.
Yeah.
In it.
Cool. All right, so we've covered my number 1, and that was your number 2?
That was my number 2.
Have we covered...
my number 1 is I'm Sorry.
So we only have one thing left to say? We got my number 2, and that's our last thing to talk about. Then we'll recap. We'll let you know what all was on here. We'll give a little list of the recap. Yeah. So save the best for last, although this is my second best. My number 2 is I Think You Should Leave on Netflix.
That is high on your list.
This show is so funny. This is the funniest show of the year.
I agree that it's funny, although I can only handle it in small doses.
Well, it's short episodes, Gia, and there's not a lot of them. So
I can handle it maybe a sketch at a time.
Okay, that's fair. And I've shown you a few sketches. Yeah, so it's created by Tim Robinson and Zach Cannon. The series description says, there is no such thing as an ordinary interaction in this offbeat sketch comedy series that features a deep roster of guest stars. This show, so Tim Robinson, you might recognize him from Detroiters, which is a show that was last year or the year before that came out. They had a couple seasons on Comedy Central. We love it with Tim Robinson and Sam Richardson. And this show, it's a sketch comedy show, and I just loved it. I loved it so much.
Do you want to tell us your favorite sketch?
Well, there's a couple that are my favorite. I've got two that I really love. One is the focus group sketch. There's actually an episode of the podcast which I mentioned before on our podcast, Good One, which is a podcast about jokes and things like that. And there's a panel discussion with the stars and of the focus group sketch, and they interview them and go into it. Basically, the premise here, Gia, is that there's a focus group for a Ford car, I believe, and there's an old man in it who keeps making ridiculous suggestions. I can't describe it right now. It's too much. You got to watch that. I think that's on YouTube, actually, that one. I love that one. I also love the one about the bones. The skeletons?
The Johnny Cash parody?
Can I read you? This is this is from the AV Club. This is sort of a review of that sketch.
Okay.
They ranked all the sketches from best to worst. I don't know where they had this on the list, but the name of the sketch, or whatever they call it in here, is The Day That Robert Palin's Murdered Me. And here's what the AV Club said about it. If the Johnny Cash biopic Walk the Line is to be believed, one of Cash's signature hits came together on the spot, a Hail Mary pass intended to impress a gospel-weary Sam Phillips. Billy, the Cash surrogate, played by Reese Coiro in I Think You Should Leave's 5th episode, tries to pull a similar audible with his murder ballad, The Day That Robert Palin's Murdered Me. But he hasn't counted on his overeager bassist, played by Robinson, who takes the instruction, follow my lead, a touch too literally. The sketch hinges on the tug-of-war between the singer's considered storytelling and the bassist's awkward, supernaturally themed riffing, which gets delightfully hung up on the minutiae, how do you say that word? Minutia of its skeletal antagonist's underground world.
This doesn't make any sense to somebody who hasn't seen this
That's
show
true.
yet.
But the performers are just as crucial to that tension, with Corio allowing just a dash of frustration into his Man in Black composure as Robinson flails about physically and lyrically, building a country and Western mythology out of bone money, parentheses, and also worm money, food surpluses, and hair that's pulled up but not out. This show,
Well,
that
that's
sketch
about right.
is so funny.
It is.
If that didn't make any sense to you, watch it. It's in the 5th episode.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite sketch from it. I also like the one where Christmas came early.
Oh gosh, that one is so funny. Oh gosh. And this is a show that I think, unlike any show this year, had kind of a viral impact. There were so many memes with the old man from the focus group sketch. There's different Twitter accounts. There's this one that has thousands and thousands of followers called I Think You Should League Pass, which that's the NBA League Pass where you have all the games. And it's like anytime anything happens in the NBA, they'll post like a screenshot of like either just a screenshot from the show or a screenshot of like there was one where there was like two basketball players like, I don't know, high-fiving or like something like that. And then next to it, a screenshot of the show and people high-fiving in a silly way. And it's so good.
It is funny. It's a funny sketch show.
And it's good to see Tim Robinson get his due there, because the show has been a hit. It's been renewed for a second season, and Detroiters was so good. And he was a writer on Saturday Night Live before he was had his own shows and things like that. And I don't know how long he was on it, and I never really watched Saturday Night Live, but they played some clips from the sketches that he wrote on SNL on that Good One podcast, and they sounded really funny too. So
yeah, you might have seen him too on what's that show called? Is it The Characters, where it's like they give a comedian like
they gave a comedian just you can do whatever you want and make a sketch show or whatever. Yeah. And he had an episode of that, which essentially is the pilot.
Yes.
Yeah. And so if you've ever watched that, or if you love the show, go back and watch The Characters. Watch Tim Robinson's episode.
Another episode of.
It really is. That's the one with the Pointer brothers.
Yes.
Oh God, that sketch. It's comedy that's just so stupid.
It's real dumb.
And I just love it. I love it.
Also, I Think You Should Leave has a really fun theme song that kind of plays in between the sketches. Yeah.
Well, speaking of theme songs, we're going to get to ours soon, because we are almost at the end of this podcast.
Oh man, this is a long one.
Do you want to run down your list? Tell us your top 10 from 10 to 1, just so we can hear it all.
All right. So number 10, The Letdown Series 2. Number 9, On Becoming a God in Central Florida, Season 1. Number 8, This Way Up, Series 1. Number 7, Dollface, Season 1. Number 6, Glow, Season 3. Number 5, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Season 3. Number 4, Undone, Season 1. Number 3, Pen 15, Season 1. Number 2, Ramy, Season 1. Number 1, I'm Sorry, Season 2.
Oh my goodness. And I'll just read through mine again real quick. So number 10, we had Veep Season 7, and then Archibald's Next Big Thing on Netflix, Undone on Amazon, It's Bruno on Netflix, I'm Sorry Season 2 on True TV and Netflix, Mindhunter Season 2 on Netflix, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel Season 3 on Amazon, I Think You Should Leave on Netflix, and my number 1, Ramy on Hulu. Now, you mentioned before we finish up here, there's some other shows that you watched as well that did not quite make the list. I don't have my shows that didn't make the list in front of me. What were some of the ones that you put?
Well, as I mentioned, I thought about putting The Circus on my list.
Right.
The Righteous Gemstones, we just watched the first episode that recently, and I can see if we had watched it earlier, maybe it would have made the list.
It might have made the list.
I liked the first episode, but I'm also not 100% sold on it, so
But that's something that I know a lot of people have said is good, and we're not saying it's not good, we just didn't get to it.
Yeah, I really liked Season 3 of Easy, which came out this year. Russian Doll.
Oh, Russian Doll was really good.
Was a good one. Let's see. This is a very different type of show, but I really enjoyed Tidying Up with Marie Kondo, which came out at the beginning of 2019.
That was a big hit there.
Yeah, it is. It's a different type of show. It's kind of, if you enjoy Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, or I think that the new ones are just called Queer Eye on Netflix. But Marie Kondo is kind of a similar type of show.
Yeah.
Those were some that I thought about that didn't quite make the cut.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I might have had Dead to Me on there for a while too. But there's a few that I liked that didn't make the cut. I almost thought about putting some wrestling on there, but hey, Wednesday nights NXT on USA, that show has been very good. But so look, this has been a little bonus episode, and we're not exactly sure if we're gonna come back in February for like a Valentine's Day episode where we're going to look at some like, wedding episodes or possibly like top relationships in TV. I'm not sure yet, but I think our regular episodes are probably going to come back in the summertime.
Yeah, where we break down pilot episodes.
Because like I said, I'm an educator and things get busy in the school year. So we might have to push it to, June or something like that. But keep an eye out. Stay subscribed because we might hit you with some bonus content in there.
Yeah. And if you end up watching any of the episodes we listed as our top ones, and you enjoy them or you don't enjoy them, let us know.
We'd love
to hear what you think about them.
We do, because we love interacting with you guys, because it is like, it's, we're just doing this for fun.
Yeah.
And so if you are like, I don't know if they want to hear from me.
We do. We
love it.
We're just regular. We're regular people.
We're regular
not famous people. We're not Hollywood people. We're regular.
We're regular, people. Just people living in Ohio.
Yep.
Just doing this for fun on a Saturday night. Yeah.
Exactly.
And if you want to reach us, the places you can reach us on Facebook at YouMeAndTV, on Twitter at YouMeAndTVPod, on Instagram at YouMeAndTVPodcast, and also be sure to subscribe wherever you subscribe. But if you want to give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, that would be fantastic.
And if you don't want to give us a 5-star review,
just don't give us a review. Don't give us a review.
We'll make it easy for you.
Yeah. And so it's 2020, and
hope your 2020 is off to a great start.
I hope so too.
Yeah, hope there are a lot of great shows this year we can recap next year.
I hope so. Side note, before we finish up, what are we watching right now that we love, that we're thinking is probably maybe going to make it on the list?
Oh, man. Well, I just said The Righteous Gemstones.
But that's from last year.
Oh, that's true, yeah. The new Jason Bateman show, what's it called? The Outsider.
The Outsider on HBO. We're
just
2 episodes in.
But we really like it
so far. Gosh, you got to watch it.
Yeah.
Curb Your Enthusiasm coming back to HBO.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that.
That Armando Iannucci show on HBO, Avenue 5.
The next season of Ramy. We're hoping season 3 of I'm Sorry comes out this year. It's supposed to.
But you know what's really cool about all this? So many of these shows that are on my list, things I did not hear about beforehand at all.
A lot of
Undone, It's Bruno.
Things that just show up on these streaming services. They're just like, you never hear about them, and then they appear one day.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's awesome. I'm so excited for this.
So who knows what the year's going to bring?
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm optimistic. It's 2020.
Me too.
And you know what? If there's a new season of some sort of Game of Thrones spinoff and you like that, watch that too. If you like it, watch it. If you don't like it, watch a little bit of it and then stop. It's okay to stop a show. We watched like 6 episodes of that Paul Rudd show,
Living with Yourself,
and then we just said, I'm not sure.
We don't care what happens.
I don't really care.
Episodes. We're
Sorry,
not gonna go
I love
there.
you, Paul Rudd. I just wasn't into it.
Yeah. You know what is the next season of American Crime Story coming out this year?
I think it got pushed back. I read something that it got pushed back because of the impeachment, or at least not because of it. But
wait, is it about the Clinton impeachment?
I think that's what it's going to be about.
Okay.
They keep saying it's going to be about Hurricane Katrina, but then they're like, never mind, we're going to do something else. So I don't know. Which that sounds better anyways, the Clinton impeachment. Although we did watch that good documentary that I think was on Hulu. I'm not sure about the Clinton impeachment.
I think it's called The Clintons. Is that what it's called?
The Clintons? I'm not sure. I don't know. There's something coming out about Hillary Clinton on Netflix or something. Or no, if that's coming out on Hulu eventually.
Yeah, but there's
was
one
a good specifically about the Monica Lewinsky and all that kind of stuff.
But I think Monica Lewinsky is supposed to be a producer on the next season of American Crime Story.
Well, I hope so.
Anyway, I thought that was coming out this year, but I'm not 100% sure, but I am looking forward to it, and I hope it does.
Remember that episode of the Tom Green Show where he just hung out with Monica Lewinsky?
No, I've never seen that. But that's fun.
Yeah, well. And on that note, this has been our favorite episodes of 2019.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Yeah,
bye.
bye.